Okay, we're officially live, and good evening to this week's edition of Talk About It Tuesday. As always, Jeffrey Smith coming to you from Pure Bowling here in Ephrata, PA. And tonight, I'm going to fly solo with a lot of bowling taking place, a lot of the national pros and stuff at the women's event, the men's events down at the Players Championship, and so forth. It was a good opportunity for me just to come on and kind of talk a little bit in detail about two releases that I am completely excited about. And these really sparked my interest as soon as they were released, and really just want to get some information out there on these pieces because they're kind of a special fit when it comes to the Hammer brand. So, as always, I'm going to be monitoring the comment sections as they come through. I will do my best to keep track, try to get to all your questions that come through, and try to educate a little bit about what to expect with these new releases that are coming out February 18th of 2021. So, what are we here to talk about today? They're right in front of me here. Hammer has announced a new line, new core, coming to the Hammer brands in the Obsession and the Obsession Tour. Now, both of these balls are actually asymmetrical solids, but they are vastly different from one another. When we go over some of the technical aspects and stuff, it'll start to make a little more sense. But essentially what we have here is we have a tour version, which is going to be basically less overall hook, less flare, more of a controlled piece. And we'll talk about the slight differences in the differential of the two balls. And then we have the Obsession Solid, which again, when we get into it a little more, this is going to be the return of kind of that carbon infused outer cover. So technology changes a little bit, going back to some of the things we did in the past with the Hammer balls, adapting those and kind of marrying them together with dot technology, make some really, really special releases here. So let's start it off. Let's talk a little bit first. Let's talk about the bigger of the two balls. Okay. So the Obsession Solid, this one, as I already said, has a CFI solid cover stock. That CFI obviously is carbon fiber infused, and it's the NV CFI. All right. So went in there, infused carbon fiber in the shell to essentially give it durability, a little more traction, and what I call a little bit more teeth. Okay. Numbers on this one are going to be 2.468, 050 for your differential, and 013 for your intermediate diff. Okay. Now, the difference when you're talking between the two and you're thinking to yourself, why do we have, two solid bowling balls released at the same time? Sometimes we'll see, maybe a solid and a pearl or a hybrid come out together. But this one's unique because what we really did is you had the same kind of core structure, but you have one that has a lower differential than the other. So the tour version, for all the Hammer fans out there that love the Web Tour hybrid, this actual cover stock is a V2 version of the tour cover. So you're getting a lot of those same properties, slightly different, but you get that really smooth, controlled, predictable motion. And the difference is it's an ASIM now. Okay, so we're going on the asymmetrical side with a cover we're going to get a lot of use out of, not just out on tour and regionals and tournaments, but in league play as well, because this ball truly does blend the lane really well. The difference, as I said, those numbers are the same, but the tour version, the overall differential of this bowling ball is basically 16 points lower. This is going to be 0.034 as opposed to the 050. V2 solid cover stock, same basic surface prep. They're very similar. You got 500, 1,000 on the tour, 500, 1,500 on this. So you got, pretty aggressive underneath, not a big step up in between. So technical stuff, great, right? How do the balls roll? I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? We want to make sure how they roll, how they fit in our bags, kind of where they fit. I essentially have gotten a lot of lane play since Friday evening with this ball, and I threw it a little bit over the weekend as well. And I can tell you, the thing that I think impresses me the most so far with this and kind of how it fits into my bag is it is a great stepping stone that this ball is earlier, okay, than a Widow 2.0 for me. And it is more in the body and the mid lane than a Web Tour, okay? which is amazing for me because sometimes I essentially struggle with the super dull, big symmetrical bowling balls. They kind of feel like they bog down a little too early for me, being a little heavy-handed. This ball is perfect because it addresses a what I have in my bag as a gap where I can easily go from a Widow 2.0 that has a little more projection than this, going down into this ball for as a progression. And then when the lane is making me get really steep angles, and maybe I want it a little quicker once it hits the spot, then I'm getting into my Web Tour hybrid, things along that line. So just amazing fit. Okay. And Julian, I'll get to your question then when I compare it to some other balls here. But then when we're talking about the Obsession, I didn't get a chance to throw this one a ton. I bowled a sweeper Friday night on wood, where this plenty of projection, no issue getting this ball through the front of the lane. I didn't really bother bringing the Obsession out because I just kind of wanted to test drive the tour. And then we went and bowled up in Schenectady, team tournament this weekend. And we bowled on Stonehenge, so not a ton of volume. The building characteristics and stuff kind of forced you in pretty quickly, especially with the rev rates that were on our pair. So, I kind of left this one in the bag. So I thought it'd be fun. Last night, we bowled league up at a local bowling center around here. And it's a pretty high friction surface. A lot of bowling balls going sideways in that building, if you will. And tore down the lane of my streaming drive. Was reading something there. A lot of bowling balls going sideways, no matter what you're throwing. Okay, so to give you an idea, in that building, I throw a lot of counterattack solids, just kind of lower end, lower diff bowling balls like tempos and stuff in there. But thought it would be fun to get this one out and just say, hey, I'm going to throw this thing in practice, see what it looks like. How much teeth can it really have compared to the tour, right? 16 points difference. So I got warmed up and I slid into about 20, fed the ball to right around like 5-6 down lane, and the bowling ball hit the 4-pin. So, I immediately chuckled with my teammates and stuff. I said, "That's awesome." I just kind of was like, "Oh wow, this ball is pretty special." So I was like, "All right, well, I'll take a big 10-step to the left and feed it to the same spot." Took 10 steps. I fed it to the spot. The ball still had no problem getting through the front part of the lane, and I still hit the 2-pin running away. And I'm like, "All right, well, obviously this isn't the time and place for it." But to go into kind of what Justin had asked, how do you compare something, a big ball like this, like the Obsession? We already have the Redemption Solid. So how does that essentially fit? Well, when you look at them, comparison to a Redemption Solid to the Obsession, okay, the Redemption Solid is slightly higher RG. And I mean, I'm talking a couple of 100,000s, okay? The overall differentials within 3, I think the Solid is 053, and the intermediate diff on a Redemption Solid is 15. So slightly bigger bowling ball, okay? Slightly bigger. But I'll tell you, the Obsession for me, from throwing it and then throwing it against the Redemption Solid was still the earlier of the two balls. So when I'm looking at overall strength in the bag and I'm trying to figure out kind of where it falls, for me, based on the other ones, the Redemption Solid definitely was earlier than this. This thing had, plenty of projection. And when you look at it, the Redemption Solid has a more aggressive underneath, if you will. So it starts with a 360. I think it's 360, 500, 2000, if I'm correct. I could be wrong on that. There might not be a step up, but I know the base on a Redemption Solid is 360. So you essentially have, that more teeth underneath it wants to actually read the front of the lane even harder in the Redemption Solid. The Obsession is going to be a good complement that's going to kind of fall. So for me, if I was going through the bags, right, and let's just say I'm talking solids, okay? Solids for me, the earliest of them all is going to be the Redemption Solid. It's going to go then into the Obsession. Then it's going to go to the Obsession Tour. And then I'm going to get into essentially like a Widow, and then it could be an MB. And then when I start getting down into symmetric, for me, I'm going to probably skip for most, there'll be like a Fugitive Solid. For me, it's going to be probably if earlier motion, maybe original web tour and then a web tour hybrid. So just top to bottom, just pretty amazing, how these things are going to fit in. And I can't wait to actually be able to bowl where I'm going to be able to throw this bad boy down the lane and open it up a little bit when there's a little bit of a puddle in the front. But want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Eddie Curtis, man, hope you're doing well, my friend. Definitely want to talk. So, I love all the technical stuff. That. Hope everything's going well down there at Prime Bowling. Shout out to Eddie Curtis and his shop down there. If you're in that area, make sure you stop by and see Eddie. Good guy. Dominic said, teeth year, Carrie Smith. She's actually in the building. She just got done with a practice session. And these are actually her two obsessions in front of me, and I'll flip them then because kind of have them laid out for her, kind of getting ready to put some holes in these, get ready for the evening, and then we're going to actually be headed up to Cuyahoga Falls to bowl the regional this weekend, over-under regional. Carrie's going to try to go 2 for 2 with her raisin partner, Ryan Schaefer. I'm going to get to bowl with Robert Leonard, who is a fellow Hammer staffer. And then I know Pelusic's going to bowl with Chin, otherwise Mike Triniski. So another Brunswick staffer. Fred, hey, Jeff. First thing literally that came to mind, the freak bowling ball with the eyes. Yes. Okay. So, I don't know if it was intentional, but we looked it up. We looked up like the freak show. I think there was a freak show flip, freak show solid. This rendition of the eyes is definitely from, look to be pulled from like the track days, like the older track days. Obviously, we as a company, the Brands of Brunswick, own the rights to basically, everything in the acquisition. So, more the merrier, put them on there like that. I think they're pretty cool looking. And hopefully the eyes are on the prize, which is winning some tournaments with them. Mark Walters, are you dual streaming? Really like seeing the tour going down the lake. Yes, I am dual streaming. I'm streaming to multiple locations. So everybody knows I'm streaming right to YouTube, and I am streaming to my personal page, and I am streaming onto Pure Bowling page as well. So 3 different places at once. Timmy Foy, can't wait to drill one. You're going to have to wait. I saw some of those practice sessions down there in Florida. If you don't know, unfortunately, Hammer staffer Bill O'Neill contracted COVID and unfortunately couldn't bowl for his position. So Timmy was the alternate and got to go down to Juniper and compete and represent the East region in the Players Championship in a quest for $250,000. I am not going to spoil any of that. You'll have to wait and see what happens. And Tim might be rich, and none of us, are going to be aware of it for a little while. But Tim, hope you're doing well, my friend, and glad to see you got that the opportunity to go down and represent. And I was glad to see it was a fellow Hammer staffer that got to go in there and try to get one for Bill. All right, Terry Mize, how would it roll for somebody with high axis tilt? Will it roll over and puke through the pins? Terry, I don't know which exact one you're talking about, but I wouldn't say that either one of these are going to be one of those shapes that are going to feel like they're just going to roll over and die on you. I think what you're really getting into, if you had a much earlier shape, and you had a lot of tilt, and it just wanted to kind of see the front, but you're also trying to burn off tilt, you can only do so much with the layout on those. But I haven't had any indications from, the little bit I got to throw the bigger one, that would be the case. I mean, I myself, tilt-wise, I'm anywhere between 7 and 13, depending on what I'm doing to the bowling ball. I can manipulate my track pretty well. So, I mean, I can manipulate my PAP to change from right around 5.5, and then kind of on a natural release, it's right around 4 3/4, and then about a half up. So it is harder to manipulate tilt than it is axis rotation, but you can definitely do it. Material, Ty Carl, good stuff, Jeff. The tour looks like it'll be a great ball motion for most conditions. And it really is. I think it's a good one there that you're saying, Ty, because again, you have a tour cover, okay, and basically all it is it's lowering the differential of the ball. It's making it more of a control piece, if you will. But in an asymmetric version, it gives us another option. So, a lot of us that love the web tour, Okay. And you saw the success of that on the original solid version, fell in love with it. Then we had the Web Tour Hybrid, which gave us a little more projection, a little quicker off friction, a little overall more through the pins. And now we have another one to complement it that is, an asymmetric and actually brings it closer to me at the foul line and gives me another distinctly different shape. But from a control standpoint, it's awesome because hockey stick reactions, I guess there's a time and a place for them, but I'm going to migrate and sway towards balls that are controlled and smoother and basically getting to see a bowling ball, not getting a surprise for it when it bounces off of friction. Last night in that same center, just to kind of give you an idea, very high friction. I started with this the first game. I think I bowled 220, but I had a split in the game, a poor executed shot, and it was a little much for that. But the awesome thing was I knew immediately when I was in the Obsession Tour, my progression was I'm going to a Web Tour Hybrid. Okay, I'm going to Web Tour Hybrid because I see what this is doing. It's an earlier motion, kind of gave me that sweeping motion. And I'm like, in this building, I actually need to play a little more down lane motion because there's just that much dirt to my right. So it was a very easy choice for me to go from understanding this cover of the ball, which is what comes in contact with the lanes, to quickly go into that hybrid, which gave me a little more projection. And yeah, it was a little quicker off the spot. But when I opened up my front angle and my launch angles were more wide open, it got the ball through the pins awesome. And, I think everybody on the team was like 7-0 or whatever. It was a pretty good night for us. But again, game 2 operator error. I threw a split in the 10th frame, turned 250 into 230 or 260 into 230. But all in all, excited for this one. So I'm kind of had the balls in front of me, so I'm kind of reaching to scroll here a little bit. Jordan, looking at sports shots, what patterns would these roll best on just by an educated guess? Jordan, obviously they're going to be different from one another. I mean, I think what you're really going to see is, a lot of these tournaments we go to now, oil patterns are changing, and the amount of oil that's being applied to the lanes has gone through the roof. It's nothing for us to see, 26, 27, 30, 31 mils on a building. Okay. And, what happens is we got to combat it at least early. So, when I'm getting into the big balls like this, now somebody with a really heavy hand will probably throw it early, when they're a little tighter, because ideally for me, I don't want to get in and just, completely curve on a big ball like this. I really want to use it when I can kind of trap it a little bit to the right and let the bowling ball read the front of the lane, kind of control it a little bit, but have enough on the back end to get it through the pins early until the pattern kind of takes place. The beauty of it is that based on the differences in the covers, right? If I have a good look and the cores are, pretty much the same with a little lower differential, I can easily go from one to the other. And I know when I get into the tour version, I'm going to have a smoother cover. So my front to back, if the front of the lane starts going away, I can get through the front of the lane, maybe stay in that zone a little longer when I just actually cover down a little bit. All right. So, depending on what it is, Jordan, you're, being a two-hander, higher rev rate, obviously, which one are you going to like the most? Honestly, probably the tour. Okay. Because it's going to control flare. I mean, you don't, essentially, as a two-hander, we're not going to drill a ton of asymmetric balls that are super flaring balls because honestly, you just don't need it. You're not really playing the front of the lane all that much. And, we usually go with some flare reducing layouts that, allow the ball to see it correctly through the pins for you. So, I mean, if you're thinking one way or the other, I'm going to say the tour for you. But Darnell, hope you're doing well. Another gentleman on staff with, Hammer and the Brands of Brunswick and down there with Eddie Curtis. Definitely interesting in watching you guys throw the tour. Darnell, we'll definitely throw the tour on Thursday night. Some people got to see it. I did, like I said, I threw it on Friday night at a local sweeper. I stayed on it the whole night. It was probably, I don't know that I would have got off of it. Maybe a little later I would have balled down a little bit, but I think I bowled like 135 or 140-ish over 4 or 5 with it right out of the box. I never touched the surface. I never threw it down the lane before then. And easily read the bowling ball. And it was, pretty impressive because certain lanes, it didn't seem to be as it wasn't as affected as much to some of the over under or the cliff, because it really did blend the cliff out a little bit for me. So like essentially in the building, which was a higher ratio pattern, I'm guessing where we were is I mean, it sounds crazy. It's probably 20-1 or more. So super cliff. And it blended the mid lane really well. And it never gave me that feeling like you would have some other balls feeling like, okay, if I get it to the friction quick, it's 3-6, 3-6, 9-10, or big four. And then if I try to feed it to the inside of the cliff, I bucket or 2-8-10. Never happened until the last shot in the 10th frame. And that was me. So, all right, Chris, would the obsession be a good fit around my strata and aerodynamics? Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look up the exact numbers on that strata, Chris. I honestly don't remember those right off the top of my head. But the strata, when you looked at the track piece, um, solid cover stock on that strata as well. Numbers are probably realistically close, but I'm going to go ahead and guess that this obsession is probably, just from seeing them go down the lane, this might be a little earlier than your strata. I personally, even though as popular as it is, I never drilled a strata. I probably should have. I mean, Wadka makes that ball look amazing. So, maybe I got to put one in my bag. But between that and the aerodynamics, again, another special ball. I know it's another kind of from one of the other brands for the aerodynamics, but that bowling ball there is, for an asymmetric ball, is super smooth through the front part of the lane and retains plenty of energy. But big step up, a lot more projection than what you're getting out of the regular obsession. And I see you kind of said obsession tour. It's not going to fit. Obsession tour is not going to fit in between a strata and an aerodynamics, really, for me, Chris. I think it's more of when you get into kind of the end of your asymmetric bag, if you will, before you're getting ready to feel like you're going to go into the symmetrics. I might, like I said, I might have an obsession tour, maybe a widow before that, but just because the widow, it feels even a little cleaner, but higher diff. So again, it's completely different pieces. All right, somebody is posting from Period Bowling, which is me, and I didn't do it, so I don't know. I guess it could have been Carrie. Will these be up on the Period Bowling pre-order by tomorrow afternoon? Well, that would be a question for my brother, who is our web designer and has these and does work a day job, so probably. All right. Eddie, has the carbon fiber cover been tweaked using Brunswick's methods? I have kind of love-hate relationship with the old carbon fiber covers. Honestly, Eddie, I don't know. I don't know if they did a different way with the pour. Just basically blending the two. I haven't had the opportunity to get kind of any of the engineering side of it, of these two releases, but I mean, it's definitely a question I'll find out for you. I would say, for me, I'm kind of there with you. Like some of the other carbon infused ones kind of felt really early to me. I will say, even though this it hooked as much as it did, it wasn't early. So, there's a tweak in there that we, we'll kind of have on that, but not 100% sure. My brother is texting me right now just for, proof here. He's probably on the feed telling me he's going to have these up tomorrow. Oh, my brother posted that. He said he posted it's a statement. They'll be on the site tomorrow. It said we'll have these up. I read that wrong. Darnell 2475-5017. So okay, when you're looking at the strata there, 2475, it's around the same, kind of lower RG. Diff's kind of around the same as the obsession, Chris, like the solid, but the intermediate diff being a little higher. On paper, the intermediate diff being higher makes it a bigger ball, but I mean, I'd have to throw it side by side to really give a fair comparison on that. Yes, Carrie, I'm sorry. And I realize now it wasn't you posting. So it just caught me off guard because I know I didn't put that comment up. So talking a little about the balls, we talk about layouts, things along those things all the time. So like for myself, the first ones that I drilled up, I did, basically my benchmark layouts for me. And I'm pretty matched when it comes to speed and rev rate. So I generally go with like 55 by 5 by 50. I do not like bowling balls to over flare. I think some of that is based on my age, being 42 and kind of how I grew up. I started out with down lane motion and kind of, it progressed and learned how to play the fronts a little differently. But as I said in a segment last week when I was talking on Wednesday, some of that mindset will change for um, moving forward as I start to compete a little more on the national tour again. And I'm going to tweak some of those. And out there, I think I am going to need a little bit more stronger layouts to have them flare a little bit more because I actually want them to burn off even more because the fronts go away so quick. Again, when it gets into the layouts and stuff like that, I know everybody's on here. A lot of individuals here are clients of mine. I'll gladly help you with layouts that make sense for you. But if you're not, and you're, for instance, in an area like where Eddie and Darnell are, and you're working with those guys down there, that's where you want to get with your pro shop operator to truly understand what makes the most sense for a layout for you, right? Because we don't all throw it the same way. When you looked at mine and you look at Carrie's now, Carrie's, started kind of hard to see there, but started drawing some lines, in Carrie's, and for her, Carrie's about 5 degrees of tilt. Okay, so very up the back, very forward through the front part of the lane. Rev challenged. Okay, she doesn't have a ton of hand, and the one thing for her, to give an example, when we're drilling up bowling balls, with her in mind, we're definitely not going to, again, use balls that flare a ton. And the reason for that is because her natural ball roll misses the front of the lane a lot. Okay, right? Because she's so forward. So when you're looking at like the skid phase of a bowling ball, and you're working with layouts, we don't want that bowling ball trying to read the front where her bowling ball doesn't see the lane. Really, we need her bowling ball to read the body a little more and to actually get the bowling ball to get into the roll phase to roll forward, because that's the trick, right? When you have individuals that are very forward and that are rev challenged, you're dealing with a very short window of opportunity to get that ball to hook and then roll forward, right? And that's the difference between having, especially for her, good ball motion and good motion through the pins. So, if I was to give her like a, 3 3/8 pin to pap, it's going to be very few patterns that ball is going to look very good on. So, you could treat it like that, because she's speed dominant, similar to what we would do with somebody who's very, very spinny, right? It's kind of almost the same thing. And I'll use an example. I don't know, Rick, if you're on, Rick Graham. Rick Graham's, real spinny through the front, kind of that voodoo roll type thing. And the same thing for him. We can't use super strong pin to paps because the bowling ball's never going to roll correctly. We use a lot of stuff that is in the 5 range or the opposite way, 2 and below to kind of get the stabilization of the core and for it to flare less, because we got to use that small window of where the axis rotation of his bowling ball takes over to actually, get it to go through the pins the proper way. And obviously, I think we're on to something because both Chris and Carrie seem to win a lot. So, take it for what it's worth. Okay, so let me see here. Maurice, where will these balls fit in with my results? Maurice, are you referring to the original results? Results solid, results plus? No matter which one they are, Maurice, those balls have very high intermediate differentials. They are designed, essentially, they are big balls, and really to combat the use of not allowing weight holes anymore, especially for individuals that may be rev challenged. So, Carrie hasn't, dabbled into throwing a lot of the radical balls, but when you kind of think about it, we talked about maybe doing a results plus or something along those lines with a really high intermediate diff, because we can't use holes to get these bowling balls to see it where we want it to see it anymore. And that was some of the intention when, if you caught the program with Phil a couple weeks ago when we talked about it, was to kind of help those things, because we got one shot at drilling a bowling ball at this point, right? In the past, if it was close, we're like, it's good, but it could be a little better. We pop a hole in it if we had, static weight left in the right places. and we've drastically improved it. Now we get a shot, and it goes in there. So, Maurice, I see you on your bottom one there. You have all three. Um, okay, so I mean, right there, you got you have the solid, the original pearl, and then the second solid, if you will, with the extra projection and things that's in that plus cover. Those bowling balls are even bigger motors. Uh, you're going to get more. How can I put this in the best way? When you get into that much intermediate differential, you're really trying to get it to really dance when it sees friction. I think what you're going to see is a big difference between those and between like an obsession is you're going to see a rounder shape as opposed to kind of that quicker off the spot shape that you see in those results bowling balls. Kind of just a different methodology when it comes to kind of the motion and what they're trying to do with the numbers. So, these intermediate diffs are on the lower side. So if you really take a classification, you think about it, they're more towards the symmetrical realm of things. Now, when you drill a bowling ball, okay, and you're looking at intermediate diff, you can pretty much assume that when you drill it, it's going to go up by about 10 points. So, an obsession like this starting at 13 is going to end at like 0.23, whereas your results, 0.27, I mean, those balls could be pushing 40 depending on the layout till it's all said and done. So completely different. Brian Green, big fan of the Redemption Solid. How would you compare the Obsession to the Redemption Solid? I hit that a little earlier, Brian, but no problem. We'll go through it again. And Redemption Solid versus this Obsession, I definitely, just numbers wise and seeing them go down the lane, surface preparations, the Redemption Solid is still a little earlier for me. This Obsession was probably, in my opinion, more in the body of the lane, but it's a fresh cover. So I need to get some games on it to really see kind of the big differences between the two. Because, like I said, the RG values and stuff are pretty close. And when you're looking at the intermediate differentials, they're pretty close to one another as well. And even at diff, the diff is slightly higher on the Redemption Solid, which is 53 versus the 50 on the Obsession. But again, different covers, different core combinations. And for every player, they're going to be, they're going to react slightly different just based on what your ball roll is. I mean, obviously, if you're somebody that your ball sees the front harder, surface prep wise, the Redemption Solid should see it sooner just because the base of the friction on that with the pads used is 360 because it's starting more aggressive, smooths it out over top, going up to a 2000 pad versus only going up to 1500 on the Obsession here. Obsession with the bigger ID, intermediate diff. Okay, means it's going to come off the spot faster, but again, it all depends on how you get it drilled. I think what you're saying between the two is what you're asking, Fred. Then yeah, I mean with the bigger intermediate diff, just like we were saying kind of about the results, when it sees friction, it's going to come off of it faster shape wise. Doesn't mean it's more through the pins. It's just going to come off of it faster when it stands up. Want them tournament? Not really about it. Thank you, Jeff. I missed that earlier. No problem at all. I like that the one's pink just because it's pretty. Yes, Carrie, that is important. It's kind of funny you say that though, but we talk about color, we talk about things like that all the time when bowling balls are released. Aesthetically, how they match up with a person's eye. Mine was kind of unique, my Obsession, because when I was laying it out, again, this is Carrie's, but when I was laying it out, my Obsession was basically like this whole section here in the front of the ball had a lot of maroon in it, like the Obsession Tour, maroon and black. And the only pink I had was basically where the back flare rings are going to hit. So when I saw it going down the lane, it was easy for me to read. And I'm not generally one that likes the flashy colored bowling balls because sometimes I have a little bit of an issue kind of reading them, correctly off of the spot. But this ball was very mild with the pink hints and stuff that are in it. But they're really cool looking balls. Like somebody saw the Obsession, the tour version, and are like, what color is it? Right? It's kind of it's kind of a cross between like a maroon with almost like a caramel purple in it, and it's really cool. And actually, the colors kind of come out in the Obsession too, because it's actually a 3-color ball and has some of the maroon in it. Hers is mainly in this section here. It's the same color that pops. Jeremy, I'm still trying to understand how it is an asymmetrical ball. I'm not sure what you're asking there. I mean, are you saying because the intermediate diff is so low? I mean, if you're really going off classification, it's pushing the envelope. I mean, it's when you look at the core shape, I mean, it is asymmetrical in shape. Um, it's just not a super strong. There's not a ton of asymmetry to the ball, which is what makes the characteristics different. And when you're talking that the differential and the tour version, and pair that with a tour cover, which is milder, it just controls overall flare potential, and you're going to get a little less overall hook. So, like if you're a rev dominant guy, gal, two hander, somebody that likes to control the break point a little bit more and doesn't really want the extra help, you're going to be into the tour version. This is probably the one you buy first, right? And then to complement it, you're going to go in and you'll have the bigger piece if you need the little extra diff, the little extra help, and just a little more core help out of it. How does the Obsession compare to the new Black Widow 2.0? For me, from the 2.0, the 2.0 is, when you look at a 2.0, that is slightly higher RG. The differential is 058, and the intermediate diff is even higher too. And when you look at that kind of that classic Widow shape, I have the tour version actually a little earlier than I have the projection of the Widow 2.0 and out of box. The Widow 2.0 definitely comes off of it harder than the Web Tour. So Bernie Hayes Jr., 1, 2.5. Must be bowling league or something. Fred, I was talking about when you were comparing difference between the Redemption Solid and the Obsession Solid. Yes, okay, it makes more sense, Fred. Sorry, I'm trying to follow along. There's a lot of comments coming through at the same time. But again, kind of going back to it, I mean, rev dominance, definitely going to be in this one. A little more, a little more hand, or a little less hand, a little more help down lane. We're going to be putting you into this regular Obsession right off the bat. Jeremy, I'm in between the fact the Tour has the same diff as the Burgundy hammer is what caught my attention. No, the diff, the standard diff is what is different in them, not the intermediate diff, Jeremy. The standard diff is 50 on the Obsession, where this is 034. That's what the difference is between the two. The intermediate diff, they're both 13. So when you're looking at the overall, basically the core strength of the intermediate diff, that's the same. Differential, I mean, that's why the RG is just slightly different between the two, even though it's the same core. That's how they get. It's just the differences of how the densities are balanced. All right, what else we got out there? Any other questions we can answer for you today? Obviously, these are releasing again February 18th. I will tell you, I've had a ton of questions that came through in these, a lot of pre-orders that are coming through. So one thing's for sure, if you're interested in these bowling balls, reach out to me sooner rather than later, because we essentially, we get these on pre-order. I always want to make sure that I order in enough to be sufficient to accommodate everybody so they get them the day they come out, and then they're not waiting, because I can tell you, popularity of these balls that are being produced by the brands of Brunswick across the board are through the roof. I mean, you think about like the Hammer 2.0 release. At this point now, I mean, it's kind of hard to get some of them. I know 14s are back ordered in my area, super popular. On the Brunswick side, the knockouts, distributor's been out of them already. So, you want to make sure that you get the pre-orders in early enough to make sure that you have yours at your doorstep. Jeremy, how important is the intermediate diff? The intermediate diff is again, the best way to explain it is how quick it comes off the spot. So, how quick it wants to see friction. Okay, so the motor's the same, but the overall differential of the ball is dictating the change in the roundness, if you will. So when you think of a higher regular diff, okay, versus a slightly lower differential ball, your higher diff, or closer to 60, you're going to get, is going to give you, I hate to use the word whippy. It's not whippy. It's just quicker, right? Whereas when the diff comes down, the standard diff comes down, you're going to get more of a rolling shape. The the intermediate diff is basically just how much asymmetry a core has to it, or how much help it's going to have. The big difference between these two bowling balls, because they're so close and they're solids, they're distinctly different when they roll. The biggest part is what touches the lane, and I'm saying that for any ball we talk about is surface preparation of the bowling ball and the actual cover of a ball dictates shape so much. It's so hard to put into words. This tour cover that is on this is what makes this ball more round than anything. This cover being aggressive and having the additive package that's in it makes it grip the lane in a different way to flare more. Surface prep. It's huge. Is intermediate diff important? It absolutely is. It's more important for the ball driller. Okay. It's more important to understand the big differences between them. Is there a huge difference between an 013 intermediate diff and an 016 intermediate diff? No, there's not a ton, but there's definitely a big difference between, let's say, go back to like, I think the kinetic obsidians at one point were like 0.005. It was basically a symmetric ball. And then to like your results that are 027 out of the box, yeah, they're way different, right? They're way, way different. And the response to how it actually sees it down lane. Brian, I'm actually trying to get these up right after the feed ends, and you can pre-order online. Good to know on that. Again, if you don't want to go that route, you can contact us directly here. And, my cell phone number is public. People are texting me all the time. It usually drives Carrie crazy. Who's that? Like, it's client. Who cares? But again, super excited for these. I'm definitely going to throw these down the lane for you on Thursday. I will likely have Carrie here with me to give you kind of a comparison. Somebody that throws it, straighter and is way better at throwing it straighter than me. I can play them to the right, but I still hit it way harder than some people want to see. And then, I'll try to get in and open up the lane a little bit. I might throw them. I'm thinking we might throw them. We've been practicing a lot on 39-foot Don Carter because we're going to see that at the regional this weekend. So I might just throw the 39-footer out there and see what they do, kind of give us maybe a slightly different look. Usually we do the ball videos on 43, 44 feet or so because we're combating the old wood, but be nice to see them on a different pattern length. So we'll probably throw that out on Thursday, and you can see for yourself what these do and the distinct differences between the two. Before I kind of go off here, another one of the things is, we've added a new segment on Wednesdays, and we've named it off to Wisdom Wednesday. And, I'm trying to review topics that I think that are important to help individuals kind of, better themselves, kind of get more involved in the game, understand not just equipment, but lane play and things along those lines. Tomorrow, we're going to spend some time talking about the mental aspect of the game. And it's something that I know every single player that's ever laced them up and gone to a tournament or league play or anything can basically, spend some time understanding, the things that can set you off, the things that can make you mentally tougher, how to step up in situations where, maybe you need one. And basically just in all, how to kind of, carry yourself and understand the impact of how you let emotions get to you. So I think it'll be a really good session. And hopefully, as many people log in for that as well. And kind of listen through maybe some, tips and tricks that you can do. And you can kind of take those to your own game and, continue to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And then, again, Thursday night, we'll be on here throwing shots. And then we're going to leave for Ohio on Friday morning. And probably these balls will see the lane for us out there. Hopefully continue. Looks good on the Carter pattern. And you'll be reading about Hammer in the winner circle and, titles being raised there. But until then, gang, I think we're about at the end of the questions that are kind of funneling through. But if you have more that you wish you would have asked, feel free, reach out, send me a message. I'd be more than glad to work with you and answer any questions you may have. And continue to go out and support bowling, support your local centers, your local pro shops. Come visit me here at Pure Bowling. We love seeing people. And, buy the Brands of Brunswick's, buy Hammer, and let's just support bowling overall. Until then, everybody, I'm going to be signing off. Everybody have a good rest of your night, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.